Hello and welcome to Cryptid by Country, Canada. I have been planning on making this video for quite some time now, and it was even suggested by a longtime viewer of my content by the name Eric Ajou 1954. So thank you for the suggestion, and sorry if it took some time to get here. When talking about Canada, there are two main cryptids that pop up, and that would be the Wendigo and the Wahila. The Wendigo has a two-part role, where it can be both creature and spirit being, which leaves many on the fence as if they really are actually a cryptid at all. The Wahila is one that I won't go into, since I recently made a cryptid spotlight on it about 3 months ago. Don't fear though, since there are way more mysterious cryptids to talk about outside of those two. So join me in our journey to the Great White North, and let's discover all the mysteries that are said to make Canada their home. Canada consists of 10 areas known as provinces, and it has an additional 3 that are considered territories, which include Yukon, Northwest Territories, and Nunavut. The difference between the two designations is that provinces gain their power from the Constitution Act of 1867, whereas territories are given power from the Parliament of Canada. To put it simply, if I understand it correctly, provinces are considered sovereign, to which they can rule themselves as they see fit, whereas territories are not, and rely on the government. Canada has kept its name since 1535, when French explorer Jacques Cartier was given the name Canada from 2 members of the Huron-Iroquois tribe. The natives were actually using that word, which meant village, to describe the nearby Stadacona village, which is close to Quebec, but Cartier thought Canada was the actual name of the settlement. So due to this confusion and the French spelling, the name stuck. Not long after, France built many settlements, but after the 7 Years' War in 1763, the British took over much of their land. To this day, Canada is still considered to be owned by Queen Elizabeth II. Although it should be noted that in 1982, Canada adopted its own constitution, effectively making it an independent country, but it still is considered a British Commonwealth. As usual, it is time to discuss Canada's interesting flag. Through its history, Canada has flown many flags, including the St. George's Cross when John Cabot came to Newfoundland in the 1400s, the French military flag, and even the UK's Union Jack. After this, the flag known as the Canadian Red Ensign was flown until 1965. At this point, a man named George F.G. Stanley designed the one we are all familiar with, and it was officially adopted on February 15th of that same year. Known as the Il Unifoyer, which is French for the one-leafed, it depicts a red maple leaf on a background of white with 2 red stripes. The color red is meant to represent prosperity, and the white is both a symbol of impartiality and peace. The maple leaf has 11 points and stands for Canada's culture and the beauty of the landscape. It has been an important symbol through Canada's history and was even included on the coat of arms for Quebec and Ontario in 1867. As I am sure you are as curious as I am, the 11 points do not represent anything, but interestingly, the design was chosen due to the image not being blurry during heavy winds. I should note that each province and territory does have their own flags as well. Okay, enough history, let's talk about cryptids. When it comes to Canada, this country really took me to task when discovering all of its hidden creatures. Never before have I had such a long list to work from, which is a good thing, but sadly it also isn't, since I always have to whittle them down to only a handful. As such, I wanted to start our journey with looking at a few of the lake monsters. However, I won't be able to include them all, since I personally have found references to at least 18 different versions of that type of cryptid. Although, this number makes complete sense when figuring how large a landmass Canada is. Honestly, in order to talk about them all, such as Ogopogo, Mussy, and Catty, I think they would require their own video, if not a multi-part one. The first one I would like to talk about is called the Turtle Lake Monster, and it is said to roam about the waters in Saskatchewan. It is frequently described as being 3 to 10 meters, or around 10 to 32 feet long. It doesn't have a dorsal fin, and oddly enough, its head is said to resemble that of a dog, seahorse, or even a pig. Stories of this creature go back to before the first Frenchmen set foot on the land. According to Cree tribe lore, it was something to be feared, and it was even said that this monster had a taste for human blood. As such, many who decided to venture into the waters failed to return. Disappearances still happened on this lake, but no one is sure if it is due to an accident or if the monster is involved. One famous story from around 1999 came from a man named Gordon Watt, who frequently farms the waters with a net. On that day, he was on his boat with his daughter and grandson when they all saw something on the surface of the water 13 yards from their craft. As they watched, its head rose from the water, followed by its massive back, and he claimed it rolled over in the water and vanished. The oddest part is that he described the head as looking like a seahorse. Since that time, many fishermen came back with reports of something extremely large swimming under their boats, but just under the surface of the water. Many experts feel that it could be a large sturgeon, but they don't look anything like what is described. Going back to legend, the Cree are said to fear bringing attention to the monster, and as a result, tell travelers that it is nothing more than a sturgeon. Keeping with the lake monster theme, we move on to a creature that is something right out of some horror movie, or more so, in my nightmares. This creature is found in Cold Lake in Alberta, and it is known by the name of the Big Kinusu or Kinnichuck. Oddly enough, the beach at Cold Lake is called Kinusu Beach. I apologize for that pronunciation if it's wrong. I couldn't find the correct one. I was not able to find a description of this creature other than it just being an extremely large fish with a mouthful of teeth. In another Cree story, a warrior had finished his day's work when he set out on the lake in a canoe with the intent of spending some time with his betrothed. When he neared French Bay, a giant fish burst from the water and grabbed the canoe in its mouth. Using its powerful jaws, it tore the craft to pieces, and then turned its attention to the stranded warrior, which it swallowed in one gulp. Nothing remained of the event, other than pieces of the canoe that managed to wash ashore. Many of those were said to have indents of where teeth had bitten into them, and a few boards even had large fish scales on them. In one story, native people would see a full-grown bull elk swimming across the water, only to be pulled down by something, and never return to the surface. Through the years, more and more sightings sprung up, and in the 1800s, a strange, large bone believed to be from a kinusu washed ashore. Even presently, fishermen have claimed that on a calm day, their boat would suddenly be hit by something very large, and just as soon as it would happen, it would just as quickly end with a huge splash in the water. At the time, the Cree began to fear crossing the lake, and I think I completely understand why. Moving on to something a little more terrestrial, but not really, we find two creatures that seem awful similar. Again, from the Cree people, we have stories of a being known as Menegishi. This creature is commonly depicted as a trickster that is rather short, has smooth skin that can be covered in thin hair, they have long arms and legs, with each limb having 6 digits, and a large round head that doesn't have a nose. These beings are frequently known as water spirits, but according to another similar creature, they may be more than that. This particular being is said to be a race of little people who make their homes in the rocks behind water rapids. While they don't appear intimidating, they apparently take great joy in attacking people in canoes and drowning them. They are said to be primarily aquatic and can breathe through their skin. In some stories, they are able to speak telepathically and move about undetected due to having the ability to become invisible. The Menegishi are known to carve designs out of stone and are intelligent enough to construct things as well. While this all seems like something from folklore, there is a similar story of a strange-looking being from August of 1978. A 51-year-old Toronto man named Ernest found that one of the kittens he and his wife Barbara were raising had gone missing. He decided to search for the cat, which took him down Parliament Street, where he came across the strange, dark cave. Ernest crawled 10 feet inside the opening and found something that he wasn't planning on. Flashlight in hand, he saw a 3-foot-tall creature that was very thin, had gray skin, long teeth, and slanted reddish-orange eyes. In his description, he likened the body shape to that of a monkey. As he watched in terror, this being apparently screamed, go away," in a hissing voice. It then turned and ran quickly farther into the tunnel. Ernest got away and returned home with his story. In the aftermath, apparently Ernest feared telling people his story, especially the media, since he thought people would think he was drunk. Actually, the paper The Sun tracked him down after being told about the events from one of Ernest's relatives. Even as such, Ernest only agreed to talk so long as his last name was never revealed. Apparently, the paper interviewed family and friends of Ernest, and they all spoke highly of his credibility. Not to mention that during the interview, he actually showed the reporter the cave. The cave was thought to tie into the sewer system, and interestingly, a lot of people who worked in those tunnels stated that they believed Ernest's story. It has been since called the Toronto Tunnel Monster. Continuing with our trek into the unknown, we move to a class that is quite simply different dog-like varieties. This is going to be a very brief overview, but as I've stated, I have a lot to cover before we are done. I don't want to go into this topic too much since I have other plans for it, but Canada is said to have a loup-garou roaming about. The only difference with this compared to the other varieties is that while it can be a wolf, it can also take the form of a pig, cat, ox, or various other animals. A viewer named Hunter Glass suggested I talk about the creature known as an adlet. While by all representation this is a dogman, it has most of its lore based in mythology. Yet I do find it interesting and will be saving it for the Cryptid by State Alaska video. Another cryptid that falls into this category, but will also be saved for Alaska, would be the creature known as the acklet, which by all accounts resembles a mix between a wolf and an orca. Very interesting and strange indeed. As always, with today's video, I couldn't include every cryptid, not even including all the lake monsters there are, but outside of those, I do want to talk about a few honorable mentions. As with any other area, Sasquatch has a presence in Canada as well, but they have two unique ones. The first is simply known as Old Yellowtop, which is basically a normal Bigfoot, but has an oddly colored, completely blonde head. The other is called a marked hominoid. That again is simply a Bigfoot, but these ones have patches of white and black colored hair all over their body. I tell you, the more we talk about Sasquatch, the more stranger they become. Keeping in that realm, we find a creature that may simply be a lumberjack tail, but you never know, and it is called the agropelter. This strange monkey-like being is said to live in trees and makes its meal of roosting birds. It is said to throw dead branches at people passing by with the speed of a missile. As the story goes, they are frequently blamed for disappearances of hikers or if someone is found pinned under a tree branch. Keeping with the creatures of questionable validity is the snow wasset, which has been suggested by a viewer named Hugaduko but on PC. This is a legendary weasel-like creature that can apparently shed its legs during different seasons and swims about under the snow. According to lore, it emerges from the snow to drag animals and even sometimes people under the surface to make a meal out of them. Another cryptid that is worth mentioning is the plethora of Thunderbird-like sightings that have taken place through the years. I wanted to mention the Partridge Creek Beast, but a lot of people are saying that this story was a hoax to fill in space for a lack of stories in the newspapers at the time. I love the story of a long-lost dinosaur roaming about the Yukon, but it does seem a little harder to fathom that something like that could be living in the coldest part of the country. Before ending this video, I wanted to take a moment and show off something that I recently came across and I think you'll find interesting as well. At the website monsterologist.com, I found they are making enamel pins, stickers, and stitch patches with a high focus on cryptids, UFOs, and others of that nature. I want to be clear that this is not a paid promotion, and I personally bought 9 of their patches from my own money. Only after ordering them did I contact the artist behind them, named George Coghill. As you know, I am not big on pushing products on my channel unless I really believe in them or I think they're cool. My order came really quickly and I couldn't be more pleased with their quality. I took pictures to show you the sizes of the ones I bought compared to my hand. As you can see, his website covers all types of subjects and I'm sure you will find something you like. Just so you are aware, many of the patches can be ordered with either an iron-on backing, a Velcro backing, or even as a pin back. George recently had a Kickstarter where he created more patches and stickers and pins, and he seems to be continually updating his stock. As always, when I find something cool, I like to show it to you, especially when it involves the cryptids I love. I will include a link to the website in the description below. If you haven't yet done so, do please consider subscribing to my channel for more content like this. Also, it would be greatly appreciated if you could share my videos with someone you know who may be interested in this type of genre. With that, be safe, and I'll see you in the next one. Later.